In 2003, I was involved in a wakeboarding accident and I was prescribed opiates for the first time. I was addicted for about 9 years. I had interventions and didn't have an option. Was told I was going to go to rehab or I wouldn't have a home or this or that. So my friends and loved ones checked me into rehab, and unfortunately I was a frequent visitor. For me, it was a horrible experience. I had no interest in stopping. They had the problem, not me. In my opinion, the rehabs, at least back then, didn't know enough about opiates, and you can't just stop. It's a really hard drop-off, so I never liked treatment. Because of addiction, I lost 2 people that were the closest to me in the worst way. I lost my fiance to an overdose. We met in treatment and we lived together for almost a year and a half, got engaged about a week till our wedding, and one morning I woke up and he was on the kitchen floor. We were sober, he wasn't using, but it turns out that night he relapsed and it was too much. So I found him on our kitchen floor. Then about 2 years after that, my brother had been addicted, unfortunately, since about 15 or 16. He was really bad for about 20 years. He was still himself, but he had a really bad problem, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to acknowledge it. And my first year of sobriety, I was probably 8 months in, we got a call that he was down at the river with his girlfriend. So we all went down there to have a talk with him. Turns out he ended his own life because he couldn't take it. It was my first year of sobriety that this happened with my brother, and you're on very shaky ground there. You're not sure what's up, what's down. Everything's hard. You have to start at rock bottom. But I remember a moment thinking, I'm not going to be able to stay sober because I'm going to have to use over this. And I looked at my mom and I thought, if I do, I'm the next one to go, and she won't survive that. My dad, my stepdad, my mom, they won't survive losing 2 kids. So I think that was the hardest way, but it kicked me into a gear where there wasn't any more choice of using for a weekend or sneaking here and there. I couldn't do that anymore, not at all, because you use once that close to it, you just go right back out. What sobriety has done for my life, it saved my life and it gave me a life. I had nothing and no one. Even the people that loved me the most couldn't be around me. I didn't have a license, no car. I had a drug charge, had to be involved with the courts, which is the worst place to be if you have an addiction issue. I was in a Oxford house, a sober Oxford house. It was hard. It was hard. I came up like a 16-year-old would, having nothing, graduating from this to this to this. I finished my bachelor's degree at WSU and almost through with my master's degree in behavioral health at Eastern Washington. Going through all the steps makes you appreciate what you have. Waking up in the morning in your own house, grabbing your keys to a car that you own, driving to a job, driving to school. Those are all things people in recovery are wishing and praying they could do every day. Your brain has been so damaged and your life has been so damaged. You have so much wreckage to clean up before you can get to that. Having a house and a car was like, couldn't get better than that. Now that I'm at almost 7 years, I have all these things, and I worry about, when my paid internship is going to start, when I'm going to graduate from my master's degree. Do I want a nicer car? Do I want a nicer house? Those are high-class problems. Those are problems I couldn't even dream of having 7 years ago. What the worst part of addiction is the perception that others have of it. It's the perception that you're a bad person trying to get right, that you're a disgusting person that ruined your life. Everything that's being done with addiction right now is wrong. The main point is that addiction isn't different than any other disease, and it should be treated as such. Somebody walks in the hospital with diabetes after they ate too much sugar. They spend a week trying to get their levels right, make sure they're comfortable, make sure they don't lose any limbs. Somebody walks in from an overdose or from being sick from not having their medicine. They are dismissed and disgraced and told that, they need beds for real sick people. And that is not the case. All the data and research shows this is a brain disease, and you have to manage it just like cancer or diabetes or any other ailment. that you're afflicted with. There is no cure for addiction, but there's treatment. The Tri-Cities needs a recovery center. We need an inpatient / 24/7 detox where people can walk in on their own or be given the choice to go into treatment here, not out of state. We're the only major metropolitan area that doesn't have one. Having an inpatient treatment center in Tri-Cities would be an asset that would benefit this community greatly.